It might be common for families to have conflicts or financial issues. Yet, there are probably also families who are somehow pulling it together and making an effort to get through everyday life. It's pretty clear which one is happier, don't you think? My name is Michelle. I've been called an oddball since I was a child. I don't know what's different about me. I only think I'm different because people say so. Being called different isn't a problem, but the real issue is being shunned by my own parents. I ended up having a lonely childhood. I have been sensitive to people's emotions and I can somehow read their minds. I don't know why I can do this. It's not like I can always see or feel it, but it's as natural to me as moving my hand or breathing. So I found it strange and couldn't understand why others couldn't do the same. There was a time when I felt a sinister aura or emotion, or whatever you call it, from a colleague my father brought home from work. I warned my mother to be careful with that person, but she didn't listen. Later on, that colleague managed my father into signing a contract as a guarantor for a loan. Although my mother didn't take my advice, when my father stepped away from the table with his colleague, I told him, "Dad, something is telling me that the word joint is dangerous. I don't know what joint means, but please be careful." So, my father hesitated and refused to sign as a joint guarantor. Thanks to that, when my colleague went bankrupt and couldn't repay the debt, my father was able to avoid shouldering all the debt. Another day, when I was shopping with my mother, I felt a wave of discomfort coming from behind us. When I turned around, I felt this wave coming from a man wearing sunglasses and a hat. "Mom, let's take that side street." Saying this, I grabbed my mother's hand and moved to the side street. My mother was confused and asked what was wrong, but just as we moved to the side street, we heard a shout of "Thief!" from the street we were just on. The man with the negative aura had snatched a woman's purse who was walking in front of him and ran off. The woman who had her purse snatched fell over from the momentum and got hurt pretty bad. If we hadn't moved to the side street and continued walking, the man's target would have been my mother. Such things happened frequently, and I was labeled as a strange and mysterious child. And paradoxically, my parents began to avoid me. I was lonely and isolated. What seemed normal to me was not perceived as normal by others. I began to keep my mind to myself, since being the strange, weird, and spooky child is who I am to others. I stopped expressing that, even if I felt something, it was something normal people don't feel. It was because I understood that if I didn't say something, they wouldn't say I was a weird kid, that I was just like a normal kid. I have a sister, Amy, who's 3 years younger than me. Unlike me, Amy's a regular kid. As the years go by, I find myself growing darker, retreating more into my shell. But Amy just gets cuter and more charming. It's clear who anyone would prefer. Our parents clearly started to favor Amy over me. Amy is such a lovely girl, but Michelle seems to be a bit on the darker side. Indeed, Michelle has become less odd lately, but she's still a bit different, isn't she? What they call odd was me refraining from talking about things only I could sense. It was my way of dealing with the world. I was fed up with how this power of mine was torturing me, and I was trying hard to suppress it. I wondered if my attempts to hide myself and appear normal were ironically making me seem abnormal, or if once labeled as the odd kid, the image just couldn't be erased. I grew up without receiving much love from my parents. On the other hand, Amy received all the love, including my share. Amy, who was pampered and raised, sensed my parents being cold and distant towards me. She started to look down on me. "I don't like being around you. It feels like your gloominess rubs off on me. I'm so cute, but your loner image brings me down." She started to insult me whenever she got the chance. Our parents just lightly scolded Amy, but they never seriously tried to correct her. When I was in 8th grade and Amy was in 5th grade, she was scouted by a talent agency on the street. I knew it! It's because I'm cute. They said I could even appear on TV. Amy, pleased with herself, started dreaming big, and our parents didn't seem entirely against it. You should calm down and think carefully. I sensed something shady about this. I spoke up, expressing the intuition that I had long suppressed because I didn't want Amy to get into trouble. Amy, who didn't know about my unique ability, said, "What's your problem? Are you just jealous because you're not cute and nobody approached you? Don't say weird things and stop interfering with me." She seemed furious. Even my parents, who knew about me, either forgot about it or were too excited about Amy standing on the glamorous stage, sided with Amy and criticized me. After that, I resolved to remain silent again. I told myself that there was nothing good in saying unnecessary things. One day, a student teacher came to my junior high school. He was a male college student who graduated from the school and aspired to be a physical education teacher. As he shared his dreams about education and gave a strong greeting, the teacher and students, especially the female students, were charmed. When he responded cheerfully to the girls' excited cheers, I sensed a dark aura from him. I had always vowed to hide myself and not reveal my unique abilities. But seeing my classmates potentially in danger, I decided to break my self-imposed rule. I chose a teacher who seemed understanding and talked to them. "I know this is sudden, but please believe me and help me." The teacher was puzzled by my sudden request, but she agreed to stake out a certain location after school just as I asked. I didn't tell the teacher the details. I had no reason to think they would believe me, but the fact that they agreed to help without any explanation might mean they're not an ordinary person either. And the next day, the school was in an uproar. A male student teacher was arrested for violating a public nuisance prevention ordinance. The location where the teacher staked out was near the girls' restroom, and within 15 minutes of starting the stakeout, the student teacher appeared, entered the girls' restroom, and installed a video camera. The teacher caught him in the act. Thanks to that, female students were saved from being secretly filmed, and their dignity was protected. Meanwhile, my sister, who was scouted by a talent agency, proudly joined the agency, but there were no real lessons or auditions. She only had to pay expensive membership and lesson fees. Then, suddenly, the agency closed down, leaving an empty shell. In short, my sister was scammed. She cried and screamed, directing her anger at me. "It's all because you said weird things! My future is ruined! It's all your fault!" It didn't make any sense, but my sister seemed to truly believe it. Maybe that's the only way she could handle it, but for me, it was a disaster and a nuisance. Our parents didn't say such unreasonable things, but their attitude became more distant towards me and more supportive of my sister. I ended up feeling lonely again, as the odd one out. I was happy that I could help everyone at school, but I was terrified that my actions would corner myself. That's when I received a call from the teacher who had listened to my story, asking me to come to the staff room. Worried that I would be labeled as strange again, I opened the door to the teacher's staff room. "You knew something like that was going to happen, didn't you?" The teacher asked me in a low voice without any preamble. Thinking there was no point in pretending, I gathered my courage and told the teacher about my mysterious power. "I thought so. I know there are very few people like you." For the first time, someone showed understanding for my situation. The teacher said they knew someone with a power like mine, and that's why they could understand. Actually, that person is my aunt, and I've been listening to her stories for a long time. You must be worried about a lot of things because of your power. Maybe getting advice from someone who's been in your shoes will help clear your mind. Saying that, the teacher introduced me to the person. The person looked at me with kind eyes and said, "It's natural to be worried," but you don't need to suffer. I was drawn to their gentle yet deep eyes that seemed to see through everything. The person's name was Haley, and she had the same kind of power as me since she was a child, and she had experienced a lot of struggles and hiding herself throughout her life. The stories from my senior who had gone through the same experiences helped me release my worries and doubts. From this day on, my interactions with Haley began. I called Haley my mentor, but she just gave a wry smile and said, "Please don't." Thanks to Haley, or rather my mentor, I changed. I had been living my life hiding as a quiet, unnoticeable existence. But as my consciousness transformed, I gradually began to live a normal life as an ordinary girl. However, since the incident with the talent agency, I have not been able to reconcile with my sister. If anything, it feels like we're drifting apart. It's become normal for her not to talk to me, and when she does, it's just to complain or insult me for no reason. I often have no idea what triggers her mood switches. My power couldn't predict my sister's emotional changes either. Just because you got into college doesn't mean you're all that. It's not even that great of a level, and you're so happy-go-lucky. My sister, who had been expected to get into her top choice high school, ended up at her second choice safety school. Because of that, she got mad when I got into my first choice college. It's not like I'm full of myself or brag to her. She just disses me because of her own assumptions. Our parents only try to appease my upset sister and keep their distance from me, as if telling me to stay away from her. It seemed that my sister didn't like the fact that I had become brighter since meeting my mentor. To my sister, I had to be a dark and gloomy girl who was inferior to her. But my sister is really smart. It was surprising that she failed her high school entrance exams. Of course, she was filled with frustration, and she poured all of that into studying at her new high school. As a result, she was at the top of her class for all 3 years and got accepted into a prestigious national university in one shot. I got into the most difficult university. Your college doesn't even come close to mine. I lightly responded with, "That's true," to my satisfied sister because I knew there was nothing good to come from getting too involved with her. However, my sister thought that my light reaction was belittling her accomplishments and unleashed a barrage of verbal abuse at me. Both my parents were at their wits' end with my sister, who couldn't be calmed down once she lost her temper, and all they could do was watch nervously. My parents blamed me for causing the trouble and eventually ended up calling me a troublemaker. I wanted to argue back about who the real problem child was, but I always swallowed my words to avoid complicating things further. Setting aside my sister's issues, as I approached college graduation, I had to seriously confront my own career path. Although I was no longer as introverted as I used to be, I still struggled with socializing and had little confidence in building good relationships with others. My ability allowed me to detect people's negative emotions. While I could sense positive emotions as well, it seemed people were more prone to negative ones, which made detecting such negativity painful for me. Throughout my school life, I was tormented by these swirling negative emotions and had come close to losing faith in people. Could someone like me really manage to work at a company? I decided to consult my mentor about this dilemma. I wanted to learn how she had overcome similar issues, as I was sure she had faced them as well. "I have experienced the same worries as you. Maybe you should consider doing the kind of work I do." My mentor used to work as a fortune teller and a counselor, helping people resolve their problems. She could use her abilities to their fullest extent and contribute to the world and people around her. Also, she was able to work freelance, which meant she didn't have to belong to any organization, and there were fewer chances of getting entangled in human relationships or being affected by other people's emotions. "It's the perfect job for people like us." Encouraged by my mentor, I decided to pursue the same line of work. She taught me everything from how to do the job to how to acquire clients. Nowadays, thanks to the internet, it's possible to work from home without any issues. When I told my parents and sister that I would not seek employment after graduation and work from home instead, they responded, "What's that?" "What kind of job is that?" Seems so dumb. You'll be home all the time? At least make sure to do the housework. Can you even make a living doing that? How will you cover living expenses? Well, as long as you contribute to the household, do whatever you want. While I expected such a response from my parents, it made me feel a little lonely that they didn't support me more. I felt sad thinking about their demands for housework and money. My mood darkened, and so my life working from home began. At first, I didn't have any job requests, and I struggled day by day. But with my mentor's help, I gradually got the hang of it and started to make a living. For about a year, I couldn't contribute financially to the household, so I focused on doing the housework. My dad seemed unsatisfied, but my mom was relieved and kept him in check. After about a year, when I finally started contributing financially, my dad mocked me by saying, "Finally, you're able to earn some pocket change, huh?" But I could tell that he was actually quite satisfied with the money. However, even though I was contributing, the amount of housework I had to do didn't decrease, and our lives remained unchanged. Then, after another 2 years, my sister graduated from college and secured a job at a foreign company. Unlike you, I'm an elite. You're just unemployed, living at the bottom of the barrel. It's so depressing to have you as a sister. My sister, who had successfully landed a job, started to belittle me for working from home. What are you even doing working from home? That's just like playing. You're nothing more than a parasite living at home. At times, she'd say, "It's really weird not to work outside. I'm working my butt off, earning everyone's respect, and now I've been promoted to team leader. My pay is going to increase, and I'm probably earning about 10 times more than you. There's no way a homebody like you can earn that much." My sister, who was promoted to team leader after only a year and a half in the company, kept one-upping me and looking down on me. She boasts about her good salary, but hardly contributes any money to the household, and she doesn't help with the chores at all. Laundry, cleaning, preparing meals, everything is dumped onto Mom and me. When I say Mom and me, Mom mostly leaves it to me, so I'm basically carrying everything. Whenever I say to her, "Amy, you should take care of yourself a little. You shouldn't just spend all your money on fun. You should contribute to the household too," she just dismisses me saying, "You, the unemployed, can handle the chores. I'm saving my money for my future." Our parents also just let her do as she pleases for some inexplicable reason of, "It's Amy, it can't be helped." I was used to my current lifestyle, and it was a comfortable environment for me to work, so I wanted to keep it that way. But I was starting to consider how to take care of myself. And then came the bombshell announcement from my sister. "I'm getting married!" Without any prior warning, both our parents and I were taken aback as she continued, "He's really rich, a real elite with an annual income of over $20 million. Oh, sorry for finding happiness before you, but marriage is just a pipe dream for unemployees like you, isn't it?" And she said she would bring her boyfriend over the next Sunday. With the rapid-fire succession of sudden developments, Sunday came as we were still reeling. The man my sister brought along looked like a successful young man, impeccably dressed with a sharp suit. "Nice to meet you. My name is Danielle. I would like to ask for your permission to marry Amy." His greeting was completely proper, and he showed good manners. "See? Isn't he wonderful? Just as I said. I'm going to be so happy with this man." "So, Danielle, what do you do for a living?" Dad managed to ask a question while being overwhelmed by the boyfriend's aura. "Yes, I'm currently training at a company that my father knows." We were puzzled by the word training, and then Amy said gleefully, "His father is the president of a company. He's training outside now to take over the presidency in the future." My sister seemed over the moon about the prospect of becoming a future president's wife. Afterwards, we had various conversations and Amy's boyfriend left stylishly. There were a few things that made me raise an eyebrow in the conversation that followed, but my parents were thrilled with the high-spec man. However, I felt an inexplicable dark shadow from that seemingly refreshing and good-natured man, Daniel. It's something only I can feel, so I don't know how to explain it. However, I could no longer remain silent, fearing that marrying a man with insecurities would make my sister unhappy. Amy, you've only been dating him for less than 3 months, so you might want to understand him a little more before deciding to get married. I had a strong gut feeling warning me of something, but I was unable to articulate it properly. All I could do was attempt to caution Amy using general advice.
What are you talking about, sis? He's an elite and a future CEO. You won't find anyone better than him. Oh, I see. You're jealous, aren't you? You're bitter because you're comparing your life to my happy one. Poor jobless sis.
Even our parents got angry at me for getting in the way of a rich man becoming part of our family. You're just unemployed, so at the very least, stop interfering with your sister's happiness. It was clear to me that our parents were hoping to secure a comfortable old age by marrying Amy off to a wealthy man. Frustrated by my inability to effectively communicate my concern about the dark shadow, I sensed looming over Amy. My head was spinning. In the meantime, the two got engaged, and a meeting between both families took place. Daniel's parents, like him, carried an air of freshness about them, but I felt the same ominous cloud hidden behind them. However, I was unable to convey this danger to my overjoyed sister and parents, and before I knew it, the day of the wedding had arrived.
The CEO of our company is attending today's reception. Can you comprehend how much I'm appreciated and anticipated in my company? I guess it's a kind of honor that a shut-in like you wouldn't understand.
Before leaving the house, my sister gleefully shared this news with me without me even asking. She always included some derogatory words directed at me. At the wedding ceremony, held at a hotel, the couple who pledged eternal love to each other entered the reception hall. Watching my sister, who was beaming with joy, I worried about how long this happiness would last. As my sister mentioned, the CEO made a keynote speech. Naturally, it was full of praise for my sister, which delighted her. Once the speeches were over, food and drinks were served to each table. There were all sorts of delicious-looking dishes, but I started to feel a sense of discomfort gradually. That's because no dishes were being served in front of me. At first, I thought it was just late, but other tables were already being served drinks, appetizers, and so on, one after another. Clearly, something was off. Nothing was being delivered to me. People at the same table began to notice this oddity and started whispering among themselves. At that moment, my sister came over to me and whispered into my ear with laughter in her voice.
We didn't prepare free meals for the unemployed. After all, it's such a waste to serve such food to a jobless person. You should just eat potato chips at home. Just leave your gift money and go home.
This outrageous remark was spoken loudly in my ear, and my ears rang. Daniel, sitting at the groom's table, was grinning and nodding greatly. Even our parents, who at first seemed surprised, said, "Well, it's true. Michelle is jobless after all." I was first taken aback. Then a wave of anger surged up within me. I never thought you'd stoop this low, sis. Mom and Dad, this is unacceptable. How could you accept such rudeness? My parents just scowled at me, never bothering to reprimand my sister. Fine, I get it. I'm leaving, but don't come crying to me later.
What's with the parting shot? The howling of a sore loser, I guess.
Amidst the chaos of this unbelievable turn of events, a man suddenly stood up. Sorry to interrupt, I'm the groom's brother, Kyle. My brother and parents are trash, but it seems the bride is even worse. I can't take it anymore. The man who introduced himself as Kyle continued to speak. Dad, your company went bankrupt 6 months ago, didn't it? Pretending to still be a CEO is just a scheme to mooch off the bride and her family. Daniel will never become a CEO, yet he still plans to leech off his wife while pretending otherwise. After all, he's unemployed now. The man's words stirred up a commotion among the guests, but the person who was most heated up was my sister.
What do you mean? You lied to me? What do you mean unemployed?
A storm of questions with a red-faced expression. Her face gradually turned from red to blue, her eyes welling up with tears. Our parents, their assumptions proven wrong, began to yell and curse. The anguished cries of my family echoed throughout the venue. The groom and his parents remained silent, looking sulky. In reality, before the ceremony, I had received a confession and apology from Kyle and asked him to speak his mind without reservation if something happened during the reception. Then, as my sister was berating Daniel with a wrathful face, another man couldn't take it anymore and stood up. It was the president of my sister's company.
Enough already. This is embarrassing. You have no right to criticize the groom. What do you think about your terrible attitude towards your own sister?
The president's angry voice made my sister's face contort in fear.
For one, I didn't attend your wedding for your sake. I wouldn't have come if you weren't the sister of Michelle.
Suddenly, my name was mentioned by the president, and my sister's eyes widened in surprise.
Huh? Who are you talking about?
Michelle is a goddess to many of us business owners, rescuing countless companies from the brink of collapse. In fact, with the guidance of my mentor, I had been working as an advisor for corporate revitalization and growth, starting with fortune telling and life consultation. Although I lacked business knowledge, I used my abilities to show companies the path they should take. All my advice was spot on, and the companies that sought my help experienced a rapid resurgence in business, achieving a V-shaped recovery. As a result, I had earned titles like teacher and goddess. My sister's company had also consulted with me 6 months ago, and thanks to my advice, it had been reborn as a stronger enterprise. The president, grateful for my assistance, attended the wedding today as well.
I had no idea! You're not just a basement-dwelling unemployed nobody, are you?
Thanks to my thriving career, I now earn several times what you do. Despite contributing significantly to the household income, our parents never seemed to care about me. I wonder what they thought that money was. Uh-oh, we thought Amy provided that money. The parents seem to have misunderstood the situation. There's no way Amy would have been contributing money to the house. The wedding reception turned into a chaotic scene and was called off. Naturally, all the guests were fully refunded their wedding gifts.
I was planning on using those wedding gifts to pay for the venue. What am I supposed to do now? Besides, they've also been relying on Daniel's income and have already signed a contract for an apartment under my name. I can't afford it on my own, especially now that he's unemployed.
Daniel, in response to his sobbing bride, retorted, "You're the one who signed the contract. I don't know anything about that."
I want to divorce you, fraudster!
The wedding was a complete disaster. It was a result of gratuitous malice towards others. She may argue that there were reasons for her malicious behavior, but there was no way that was going to fly. Afterward, Amy divorced Daniel and claimed alimony. As Daniel was jobless and his parents didn't have much, she couldn't receive much alimony. She barely managed to pay for the wedding venue, let alone the apartment she had contracted. The place that was supposed to be their love nest was never occupied and was canceled. However, the debt didn't simply vanish, and Amy found herself heavily burdened by the loans. Moreover, her outrageous behavior at the wedding was quickly known among her colleagues, which led to a rapid decline in her reputation. The CEO had no choice but to demote her. With no place left in the company and having lost her pride as an elite, Amy wanted to quit and run away, but she had to bear the embarrassment for the sake of loan repayment, continuing with her trivial job in a hardly noticeable basement storage room. Daniel and his parents, who had failed in their plan to leech off Amy, were now scraping by with occasional day labor. Naturally, Sean's elder brother Ethan had cut off all ties with his parents and brother. The parents quickly gave up on Amy when she hit rock bottom and tried to cozy up to me instead. To them I said, "I've had enough of being manipulated by you. I'm cutting ties. Goodbye forever." I declared this and moved out to start a new life in a newly rented apartment. They took in the fallen Amy, who was struggling to make ends meet. Amy's salary was drastically reduced, and she couldn't possibly contribute to the household expenses. Of course, I stopped the money that I was contributing to the house as well. Unable to lower their standard of living, our parents quickly became exhausted and are panting every day. My work is going so well, and I'm able to guide many companies and individuals in the right direction. In fact, I started dating Kyle after the whole wedding incident, and he recently proposed. If things go well, marriage could be on the cards. I'm looking forward to building a happy life with Kyle, a man of pure heart with no dark shadows.